right, let's get started. So whenever you're celebrating today, Valentine's Day, Galentine's Day, Palentine's Day, which is a new one I've heard recently. Hopefully you're, looking forward to celebrating the pairing of beer and dessert. So my name is Amanda DeMeo. Hopefully I'm a familiar face to you. If not, hello. And on behalf of Darien Library, I want to welcome you to Valentine's Day beer and dessert pairing. If you, we're here with M. Sauter, and she's an award-winning cartoonist, international beer judge, which I want to learn more about, an advanced Cicerone, and a public speaker and founder of the website Pints and Panels, which focuses on visual beer education, which was started in 2010. Her first book, Beer is for Everyone of Drinking Age, was published by One Piece Books in October 2017, and we're lucky that she's got another one on the horizon, which is supposed to be published on April 25th, called Hooray for Craft Beer. So make sure you get that. Before we begin, I'd like to mention that programs at Darien Library are made possible by the annual Friends of the Library campaign. We thank you for your support to make programs like this possible, as well as our collections available to the community. So I hope everyone's ready. I'm looking forward to this. I haven't eaten dinner yet, so maybe this is a bad idea. But Em, take it away.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you so much, Darien Library, for having me here. My name is M. Sauter. I am Amanda did all that stuff. You know what I am. So I'm a cartoonist. I got to drink beer and then I get calm. So you'll you'll realize that in a second. We're going to talk about beer and dessert pairings. Beer and dessert are the best. I know wine gets a lot of talk. There's spirits are great, but beer and its flavors really complement desserts, especially sweets as well, really well. So let's get started. For this pairing, you're going to need 3 clean glasses to put the beer in. Doesn't matter what, wine glasses work really well. I have some of these Belgian beer glasses, nice and small. A glass of water, which I actually realize I don't have, which is a great palate cleanser. So if you need to go and grab those things, get a glass of water. And then I tell these people, you don't need to finish the beer. If you don't like it, or, dumping beer is okay. You don't have to finish the alcohol. That's totally fine. So just remember that while you're tasting. It's not a chugging contest or anything like that. We're just having a good time, going to try some beers and desserts, and it's going to be awesome. So a little bit about me. That's me in cartoon form. I'm M. Sauter. I'm a cartoonist, illustrator, all that stuff is my full-time job. It is amazing. I love it. I went to the Center for Cartoon Studies, which is a real place in White River Junction, Vermont, where I have an MFA in cartooning. I graduated there in 2011, and there is where I started Pints and Panels, because it's a wonderful, Vermont at that time was just phenomenal. And so there was lots of really good beer. I was really lucky to be there at a time when giant breweries like Von Tramp, hype brands like Hill Farmstead were starting, run the time that I was living in White River Junction. So it was a really great time to start Pints and Panels. It was a big project that I did. And at first I would review beer, but then as around 2019 or so, I started doing visual beer education. So here's some examples. I do a lot of beer and food pairings with beer styles. So what pairs well with a dark, Munich Uncle's a dark lager. Beer flavor simple. So Baltic Porter, if I'm going to drink this, what is it going to taste like? You're going to get licorice and plum, coffee, raisin. I also do hop varieties. So hops are a real source of flavor, especially now when we're talking about IPAs and how popular New England style IPAs. Hops are a plant, but they each have a flavor similar to like how wine grapes add, create flavors in wine. Hops are kind of that version in beer. So you have Simcoe, which is from the United States. It's, there's certain things it's popular as a dry hop, which is, we could talk about hop. That's another time. If you're interested in seeing all my stuff, you can go to my website at pintsandpanels.com. I can talk about that in a little bit. This is my new book. There's the cover. Oh my gosh, it's at print. I'm freaking out. I can't believe it. I'm really excited. It comes out April 25th. 208 fully illustrated pages about beer. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait for everyone to see it. So it's, nervous, but I hope everyone really likes it. So before we open beer, bear with me. I want to talk a little bit about how food and beer go together. And with that, it's really important to remember the 4 C's. So there's cut, contrast, clash, and complement. And those are the things you can use that when you're pairing beer and food yourself, you're going to think of. With this, I'm going to use a salad as an example. So think of like a mixed green salad with heirloom tomatoes, which is the opposite of dessert. So with cut, cut is when the beer complements the element of the food. I kind of call it the mouth napkin. So when you have a beer, and we'll experience that with the first beer we have, the Lindemans. High carbonation will cleanse the palate. So when you have a salad and a beer, the high carbonation is going to scrub your mouth napkin, clean that, the dressing, the oiliness off, and you'll be ready for another bite. So think about that cutting. Then there's contrast, kind of like a salty sweet. When 2 flavors join together to heighten the overall sensation. I love salty sweet combos. You'll experience that, especially here tonight. A little bit, especially with like cheesecake's kind of a little salty, a little tart, and you'll see that. So with an example like a Gose, which is a German ale that's made with sea salt and coriander, that would contrast the fruitiness of, let's say, like a sweeter dressing, like a fruit vinaigrette. So those things go together and create an overall new flavor sensation. And then you have clash, when food fights each other. So you wouldn't want a really, really heavy beer with a salad. You'd want something light and refreshing. So something high alcohol, like a barley wine or an Imperial Stout, something big, and a salad, it's just, you won't be able to taste the salad at all because the beer is so big. So that's clashing. That's the one you really want to avoid. And then complement, obviously, when beer is complementary to the food, when everything just is in harmony, you harmonize together. The beer and the food taste really good. So like a simple blonde ale or American style, like lighter beer, a light lager will complement the herbal greens, and it will help you be refreshed and be delicious. So before we start, if anyone has any questions, please drop them into the chat and Amanda will jump in and give them to me. We'll probably, if it's really important, I can answer questions on the fly, but we'll have a question and answer session at the end. So now it's time to drink our first beer and our food pairing. I do not live in Darien, so I did not get the delicious Brown & Co stuff. So I have Giovanni's, which is our local Italian bakery in Newington, actually. I live in New Britain. So I have full-size giant desserts. But we will join together. So everyone open their Lindemans, or if it's another fruit sour, I have the Framboise. I also said the Kriek was fine. Let's open this, and then we can talk about how to taste beer before we dig into our food. So let me open this. Well, I'm talking about, let's drink. Come on. Oh, it smells so good. All right. So when we're talking about drinking beer, there is a great way to describe tasting beer. So here's a little primer. So what you want to first do is you want to swirl the glass. You obviously can't see that. You want to swirl it around clockwise. This is for muscle memory. So if you were judging beer, like I judge beer, you would swirl the glass counterclockwise, which is counterintuitive of what you would normally do. So it gets you in judging mode, gets you in tasting mode. So you want to swirl it around like 45 RPM if we're going to go vinyl, going to go old school. And then you want to be able to kind of do a distant sniff. Hold it about 6 inches to 8 inches from your nose and give it 2 quick sips. See if you can smell anything. And then you're going to swirl again. And then what you're going to do is a drive-by sniff. So this is the way that professional tasters, if you were being judged, if you were in an exam, this is how they would taste. You don't have to do this every sip at the bar. This is just for more technical prowess rather. So, And then what you're going to do is you're going to do what's called a drive-by sniff. So you're going to pull it past your nose and take a quick sniff. And, what do you smell? So this is a Framboise. I'll talk about what lambics are in a minute. I just get straight. It smells like fresh raspberries. Oh, it smells so good. Then you have a short sniff. So give it a swirl. You want to kind of make the foam stand up. Foam is a concentration of the aroma and flavor. It's kind of like a little helmet. It protects the beer. Foam is great. You don't want a bad mouth foam. Foam is actually quite good. So it protects the beer. It's where all the smells and flavor lie. It's kind of locked in. So you want to make that foam kind of stand up. So give it a couple short sniffs. Oh, the flavor of the red, it's just, I haven't even had this yet, and I know exactly what it tastes like. One long sniff. So do this one more time. I know, all this sniffing and you haven't got to try the beer yet. So you want to cover it. If you want the last is to cover it, then it really concentrates it. And wow, that's just big raspberry. And now you get to drink it. So what you're going to want to do is you want to sip the beer, hold it in your mouth. You want to warm it up a little. When beer is really cold, it loses flavor and aroma. When beer is warmer, it has more flavor and aroma because the beer is being warmed up. The molecules can move around a little more. So hold it in your mouth for a little bit. Let it wash over your tongue. And then when you swallow, you're going to blow out through your nose. That's called retronasal olfaction. There's actually aroma receptors all the way down into the back of your throat. And that's something where you can taste and smell differently than what you would get orthonasally, so up. When you do it retronasal out, you actually can get different aromas. So, all right, cheers, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. This is going to be really fun. So. It's like a fresh flower, like a fresh fruit bouquet. It's delicious. All right, and now it's time to taste. So we've got cheesecake and fruit lambic. A traditional fruit lambic, Lindeman's is a little different. It's more of a modern take. A lambic beer is a special beer made in the Seine River Valley of Belgium, in Brussels. Once it goes outside of that area, it's like champagne. It can no longer be called a lambic. So if you see a brewery in America making a lambic, they're going to get in trouble for that. You're not allowed to call it a lambic. Normally lambics would be spontaneously fermented, meaning they're brewed and then they're let to sit overnight in a tall, like kind of wide copper pan or a metal pan called a coolship. Very popular now in American brewing. I work part-time at a brewery called Fox Farm, and we use our coolship a lot. And when it cools down, there's yeast in the air. We're breathing yeast right now. Everyone's got yeast. We're all breathing yeast right now. That gets into the beer and inoculates it from the air. And then it's put into oak barrels and let to sit for months to years. They've been brewing it that way since the 19th century or before. Coolships were very popular for other beer styles. Lindeman's is different in that current fruit lambics, a lot of them are quite sour, but Lindeman's is going to be quite sweet. A lot of the ones that are easy to find in the market, Lindeman's being quite easy to find in America. There's also Bellevue. Bellevue's the kind of Belgian version. It comes in a can, which I was like, cherry lambic in a can, what? This is still, it says wild yeast fermentation, exceptional this is still made the way that they do, like with the coolship and whatnot. However, they back sweeten it, so it's not as tart. Back in the day when you'd have lambic, they used to leave sugar cubes in a stomper, and you would kind of like make a champagne cocktail, almost like a champagne cocktail. So, all right, I've talked too much. Let's talk about the cheesecake. So if you've had this beer and you're trying it, you've noticed that this has almost like a fruit compote note. And it's going to add, beer is a great addition to food. So I always say like beer is kind of the bread. Beer can be the fruit, beer can be the spice, and it kind of adds an extra layer to the food. So, all right, now we get to eat. Everyone take a bite. of their cheesecake and then kind of let it sit in your mouth and then take a sip of the beer. So, all right, let's give this a go. I know I have different food than you guys, but it really just tastes, excuse me. It really tastes like you're adding fruit on top of a cheesecake. So when you're thinking about beer and dessert pairing going forward and you have fruit forward beers, a lot of fruited sours are quite popular now. New Park near my house makes really a lot of fruited sours. There's fruited gozas, two roads in their tanker truck series. Think about if you were going to do these pairings at home or with friends or family, think about using those fruits and pairing them with a dessert where you're adding fruit, like a pound cake, and using beer to be the fruit. It's a really great way to harmonize beer and dessert pairings. The Lindeman's isn't as sour. So with more sour fruit lambics, if you were saying, let's use the Goza from Two Roads is going to be more sour than this. The sourness would complement the tartness in the cheesecake, depending on some cheesecakes are more tart than others. And then fruit lambics tend to be high in carbonation. This isn't as high as a normal one, but it would act as that mouth napkin because it is so. I gotta have one more bite because just, oh my gosh, this is delicious. That's so good. I'm sorry, you guys are watching me eat. But if you take a sip of this after your cheesecake is finished, you can see how that carbonation kind of clears out the palate, clears everything out. And gets you ready to have another bite. It's an excellent pairing. Fruited beers are really, really great with dessert. Beer in general, there's a lot of beers I actually really like, and we can get to this a little bit later. I have an infographic about it. I really like Pilsners, like lager, like regular golden lagers, and lemon desserts like a pound cake or a lemon cookie. It adds a nice twist where you kind of, the contrast is there where two things come together and there's almost like the lemon hop quality of a really nice dry Pilsner meeting the lemon, it melds together. And that's the great thing about beer and food is that they work really, really well together. All right, so milk stout and a brownie. The only brownie that my local bakery had was dairy-free and gluten-free, and I was like, no, thank you. Which, I mean, those are fine. Those are great things. That's the best thing also about beer is that beer for the most part, although this is not vegan because it has lactose in it, beer for the most part is vegan. And so you can pair it with vegan desserts. You can pair it with other things, vegetarian foods, whatnot, gluten-free, sugar-free, all those things. Beer is really great for that. So we're going to talk about milk stout and a brownie. So I'm going to open this. A little background about, if you have the milk stout, give it a hard pour. Nitro kind of builds into it. See how you can see, I don't know if you can see this, kind of that cascading effect, like when you have Guinness. This is the nitro sits at the top. So if you pour it really hard, nitro, since it's in the air, wants to escape, but you kind of push it into the beer. Nitro gets that great head retention. Quick note before we get into the pairing, Left Hand is a brewery out of Colorado in Longmont, great brewery. Their milk stout is kind of the be all end all of milk stouts in America. Great, easy to find, 6%, delicious. I don't have a brownie, I have chocolate cake. So let's try this and then we'll talk about it. And then I'll do a little experiment. So I hope everyone's having a good time. I am very much enjoying myself because I have a killer sweet tooth. Mm. That's delicious. Mm. So brownies and milk stout. What is a milk stout? Very quickly. Oh my gosh, that is. A milk stout is an English style of beer that it's a regular like English stout, but they add lactose. I always feel like I take my camera off so I can't tell if I have chocolate on my face, but I bet that adds to its charm. They add lactose, which is an unfermentable sugar that the ale yeast can't ferment. So it creates a fuller mouthfeel sensation. I like the milk stout and the brownie because milk stout's fullness kind of acts as the milk in like a cookies with milk. It's going to give that brownie more creaminess. There's also a really nice roasty component in this beer, and that's the roastiness is going to help kind of push down the sweetness. And I really like those two combos. I got to try this cake is decadent. The roastiness of the milk stout is going to kind of push down the sweetness in that brownie, which is excellent. Those are two kind of like the cutting of the roastiness is going to cut the sweetness, and that's a really nice thing to do. The brownie, on the other hand, is going to bring out the chocolatey flavor in that beer. Milk stouts don't have a lot of like chocolatiness to it. They do, but when these two get together, you can kind of get more. I hope you do get more of that chocolatiness from the roasted malts in this beer. Now, if you still have a little Lindeman's, I want you to try, and you probably ate all the brownie. But if you say, I should have said you should save the brownie. Well, if you didn't eat it all, or like lick the try the Lindeman's with the chocolate, and then you'll get that raspberry and chocolate sensation. That's for so good. Lindeman's is also really great. This raspberry or the cherry is really great with chocolate desserts because it creates, again, you're adding that fruit, you're adding. You're basically creating a new dessert in your mouth, which is amazing. It's so interesting how beer can do that, where it can bump up more chocolate flavors, lower sugar, create new flavors all in its own. And it's really interesting and really fun. That's what beer is such a, when people are like, well, I don't like beer. No, you do. You just haven't found the beer that resonates with you yet. There are so many different beer styles. There's beers that taste like chocolate. There's beers that taste like fruit. It's such a fun, and like there's some beers for everyone. There's a flavor for you that you'll find when it comes to beer. So to recap, brownies and milk stout. Milk stout is kind of acting like the milk, the lactose. No, I gotta take another sip. Is adding a fuller sensation, pushing down the roastiness is pushing down the sugar, but on the same time, the chocolatiness in the brownie is bringing out the chocolatiness of the beer. Should have brought more forks. I only have one fork. And I'm very excited about our last pairing. When I read about this pairing, it's actually a favorite of Randy Mosher, who's a very famous beer writer. He wrote Tasting Beer. If you're looking for a beer primer and you're like, I want to learn more about beer, Tasting Beer by Randy Mosher, the second edition, is a book I tell everyone to buy. It's a phenomenal book, a little more advanced than a normal Beer 101 book would be, but it's a great primer into learning all about beer styles. So I hope everyone has their double IPA or regular IPA. it doesn't really matter. I leaned toward having more bitterness and more classic flavors when it comes to IPAs. I like this aspect of a more bitter IPA. If you're into beer and you're really loving beer, you'll notice nowadays a lot of beers are much less bitter, more hazy. I went and gave you guys suggestions to go more bitter, more classic, more filtered. For my last beer, I believe we said to get Bell's Two Hearted or Lagunitas IPA or Two Roads Road to Ruin. This is Hopslam. This is the 10% double IPA version, essentially a bigger version of Two Hearted. Give this a pour. There we go. So double IPA and carrot cake. When I read that in Randy Mosher's book, I was like, what? Ew, that sounds terrible. And it at first blush, it does kind of sound weird. Like, why would you want this big bitter beer to go with a carrot cake? That just seems really strange, but it's not. Let's take a sip. And let's try it. So it's pretty interesting, right? So the bitterness gets cut by the bitterness and the alcohol get cut by the sweetness, but at the same time, like it almost like the food changes when you try it. The frosting gets less sweet, the alcohol kind of goes away, then the bitterness goes away, and everything kind of blends together. So you've got cut, you've got contrast, and then the spiciness, you get that the spices in the flavor complement the fruit flavor of the hops, because the IPAs I picked are going to have a lot of pine and they're going to have a lot of citrus. If you had gone for a hazier IPA, a lot of them have tropical or pineapple, and pineapple and carrot cake is a really, really great combo. Someone made me a carrot cake once that had pineapple chunks in it, and it's phenomenal. So let's try it one more time, and I want you to think about how the dessert changes when you eat it. The bitterness, like I said before, the IPA almost kind of overwhelms, but at the same time, the carrot cake fights back. It's like, wow, I'm going to bump up the spices. I find that when I have this flavor, the spiciness of carrot cake is heightened. It's a really interesting flavor combination. And I do really like how the beer in itself, the alcohol and the bitterness kind of pushes down the cakey sweetness of the frosting and the cake itself. It almost creates a new, it's like a new dessert. It's phenomenal how things can change just by the liquid that you're trying. This beer, by the way, is excellent. So good. It is a little big. In retrospect, the beers that you guys have, the 7-8%, less alcohol, will probably go better with this. This is a little overwhelming. I mean, it is called Hopslam. It has like someone getting slammed by hops. So it still tastes delicious though. I really love how the thing is, but you wouldn't drink this with the cheesecake, right? The cheesecake's gonna get totally bowled over. The IPA and the chocolate's a big flavor. Hops are a big flavor. They're gonna clash. And so there's a beer flavor and beer style for every dessert. So here are some of my favorite pairings. This is from I've been doing a lot of desserts. I just did an IPA and desserts infographic. If you follow me on social media, which is at Pints and Panels, every Wednesday I do a food pairing. They usually look like this. I I've been doing a lot of ones. I've also been collaborating with people from other countries where I'm not particularly familiar with their foods. So I can learn more myself, but also teach people about, I'm waiting on I'm talking with a Brazilian beer sommelier, Jose Padilla, who's going to do Brazilian foods for me. A very good friend of mine, Master Cicerone Shane McNamara, just came up with Australian foods from Brisbane. And so I learned about how they don't call sprinkles sprinkles, they call them hundreds and thousands, which is the most Australian thing I've ever heard in my life. They also put sprinkles on hundreds and thousands on toast. It's what you eat at birthday parties. It's called fairy bread. It's wild. And so there's just really great food pairings, and everything, you'll find it that works. And the thing is, these are my suggestions, but at the same time, what works for you? What do you like? What are your friends like? What are, your family, what are you interested in? So here's some pairings I have. Obviously, cheesecake and fruit lambic, you experience that. I love chocolate chip cookies and a New England IPA. They kind of create this new dessert, like those chocolate oranges that break apart you get at Christmas time. It creates that sensation. It's super good. And then there's some classics: Imperial Stout, big beer with big chocolate cake. Sticky toffee pudding, that's a Scottish, British dish with a big barley wine, lots of malt. We talked about carrot cake and double IPA. Apple pie and a Belgian triple. Triple's a big high alcohol, high carbonation beer made by monks in Belgium. Brownies and American porter, which also I did think about doing American porter. I went with milk stout because milk stout is such an interesting niche beer that I thought would be really interesting if you all got to try it. And then fruit tart, like a big French fruit tart, and a Berliner Weisse, which is a German low alcohol, high carbonation beer that's usually flavored with syrups. Raspberry syrup is quite popular. And then I already discussed my love of lemon and German Pilsner. And these are suggestions, but at the same time, if you want to do this at home and try the beers and, say, hey, let's try this with this. We could do it right now. We could try I don't know if you all have dessert stout, but you could try the milk stout with the cheesecake. And the roasting is kind of, and then you can talk through it and be like, the roastiness kind of fights and pushes down the flavor of the cheesecake, but at the same time, the sweetness heightens the chocolate flavor of the milk stout. So it goes together pretty well. I just wanted an excuse to drink more of that milk stout. Just kidding. Those are, it's all about experimentation. It's all about what works for you. Don't let anyone tell you that what you're doing is wrong. I've said a lot of this is one of my favorite things to say is there are many right answers when it comes to beer. What do you like? What flavors do you enjoy? That's about food. Food has so many different flavors and textures and consistencies and whatnot. Same thing with beer. And so what beers do you like? And what beers do you want to drink? That's the most important part. What's important to you, what you like. Here's some pairing advice. I have discussed this in the beginning of the talk, is let the beer be the side dish. Hefeweizen, which is a German ale that has a lot of banana and cloves, can add more fruit to, let's say, pancakes. You're going to add banana notes to the pancakes. We saw that fruit lambic add more tartness to that cheesecake. It's really also great as like a bread if you're having like spaghetti or a dish that could go well with a bready component. Vienna Lager, which is a, very kind of like an Oktoberfest style, lower alcohol than an Oktoberfest, is really great as like a piece of bread would be with pasta or other dishes. And then match intensities. Like what would you want to drink? Let's say we're going to have sushi. We're all going out for sushi. Would you want a light blonde ale or would you want a big, heavy American stout? Obviously, you'd want a blonde ale. You don't want to clash. You don't want to clash the flavors. So you want to match delicate with delicate. heavy flavors with heavy flavors. That's why dessert and beer goes really, really well, especially with like milk stout, bigger flavors and chocolate, complement. Bigger beers like this, Imperial IPA with sweet, heavy stuff. You're matching the intensities. And that's incredibly important when it comes to beer. And just taste beer, try them out, go, hey, I don't know would this burger be really good with this beer? Try it. You're not gonna get fired. Nothing bad's gonna happen if you try something and go, that didn't work. Oh, I don't like that. Let's not do that again. What about this? That's the fun part about beer, is trying everything and seeing what you like, and then going with it. Wow, I really like that milk stout. What other styles are like that? Oh, wow, American, porters, American stouts, imperial stouts, Baltic porters, Czech dark lagers, Schwartz beers. There's a myriad of black beers out there. There's so many, dark beers. It's wild how many hundreds of beer styles are out there that someone is just waiting to try to be like, oh wow, I do really like beer. Beer's great. It's all about experimentation. And that's the last thing I'll say, match intensities. And we've done that kind of, dessert's a big thing. So we've kind of gone with bigger beers, but other stuff can go well. Like I said before, other stuff can be tried as well. So, and with that, I know we've eaten and drank a lot. I hope you keep trying the beers and whatnot. I'd love to know if anyone has any questions as I sip this double IPA. So.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, that was wonderful.
Good.
Now, someone wanted to know if there's a store in the area that you can recommend that you can find everything.
Oh yeah, of course. So Darien is well placed between going to larger stores like BevMax in Stamford or Total Wine in Norwalk, off Route 7. I recommend when you're shopping for beer to look at Best Buy on born on dates. So I don't know if you'll be able to. So beers have a born on usually or a Best Buy. They usually do. I'm trying to find the left hand one. Oh, it's weird that they wouldn't have one. I know Hopslam does. It's usually on the bottom of the can when you're shopping for cans. The Best Buy is April 7th for this. So it'll be when you shop for bottles on the neck usually, or sometimes on the, and then actually I think, and then for Belgian beers, it's usually on the label. So I got the whole trifecta here. When you're shopping for beer, make sure you're not buying beer out of code. And if you're buying hoppier beers, buy them from the cooler. Hoppy beers degrade faster than normal beers. So you want to make sure that you're getting fresher beer. Bell's does a really great job of doing both, and they're very transparent in that. So for theirs this was brewed on 1/13/22. So this was the day it was bottled. And then there usually is a Best Buy date. They may not have this because this is on the limited side. But they usually, for when you buy Two Hearted, it says born on, and then you have 6 months to drink this. I actually think that's a little generous. I usually say for IPAs about 3 months. So make sure you're buying fresh beer. Belgian beers, years. These don't really go bad. Yeah. Also, their born on date is, a lot of them are like, they like kind of make up numbers that you don't know, which is annoying.
Now, having worked at grocery stores in the past, I've seen beer come off the truck cold, but then sometimes that beer doesn't go where it needs to be. What happens there? What is the ideal and a cold chain for beer? Yeah,
so beer should be shipped cold and kept cold. If beer gets warm and then cold again, do not panic. It is fine. That's actually a very American myth. I've talked to people outside of America who are like, they believe what? Because it's not something that any other country believes except us, that when beer gets cold and then warm again, you've ruined it. That is a myth. You can get beer cold and then warm again. Don't leave it in the trunk of the car. The hotter it gets, the faster it will degrade. And don't freeze it. Don't leave it in in the snow for vast periods of time in sub-zero temperatures. You will futz with its chemistry. It can get hazy when that happens. But for the most part, if you buy a 6-pack from the cooler, it sits on, the shelf or in your counter for a day and you put it back in the fridge, it's fine. Nothing has happened to it. It's going to taste delicious regardless. Just when in doubt, make sure your beer is kept cold at all times. And if not, and if you don't have the ability to do that, a cooler, dark place, a cellar, somewhere away from a closet. So.
Thank you. That makes me feel better. Let's see, we have a few more. Where can someone buy a Lambic beer? Lambic?
Mm-hmm. So I bought this at Total Wine, the Lindemans. They actually have quite a good, if you want to try a traditional Lambic, one of the ones that's much easier to find. Lambics have become quite popular. Traditional Lambics from Belgium have become quite popular, and in return have become quite expensive. Cantillon, which is in southern Brussels, right near the train station, has become kind of a be all end all. I've seen their bottles for $80, $100. When you go to their brewery in Belgium, it's like €5 a bottle. So the markup is there. If you're interested in trying traditional lambics, Tilquin, he's a blender. He does it. It's kind of like cheese or wines, where you buy the grapes and then you make the wine. Brewers will do that. Lambic brewers will do that. Pure Tilquin will buy wort unfermented beer and blend it himself. His beers have become more expensive, but are usually very easy to find if you want to try traditional Lambic. He's also a real stand-up guy, and he loves New England IPAs. That's his favorite style, which I think is wild. But yeah, so if you're looking, any Total Wine will have them, specialty beer stores. I'm trying to think of down in that area. BevMax will have it. They'll have Lambics. There's a bunch of breweries now in America brewing method traditional is what they call it. Two Roads has its area too. They have a cool ship. They brew lambics. A lot of breweries now are trying out the spontaneous beer, so it's easier to find if you look for it. Kent Falls brews one. We have a great spontaneous program at Fox Farm. You can only get those at the brewery though, but a lot of breweries are putting out some great sour products.
Okay. Now, someone said they're zooming in from Massachusetts and wondering if you have any favorite breweries in Massachusetts that you can recommend for pairings.
There's so many good beers everywhere. It's such a great time to be a beer drinker. There's so many great beers out. I'm a huge fan of Treehouse, which is a brewery. They have 3 locations in Massachusetts, in Charlton, Deerfield, and Sandwich. You could only get their beer there, but they brew a great variety of products. Their lager program is stellar. It's a really cool place to go, especially because it's so large. So one of the largest breweries in the country, but they don't distribute. So all the beer comes out of directly from there. Big fan of Jack's Abbey, which we can get here in Connecticut. Their lager program is really great. I love Trillium, which is a brewery out of Boston. There's so many great, I love Night Shift. Night Shift is out of Everett. There's just really great beer everywhere, anywhere you go. From the smallest stuff like Brick and Feather in Turner's Falls, Mass, all the way to Treehouse. There's just great beer everywhere. Connecticut as well has some phenomenal breweries. Huge fan of Counterweight in Hamden. Their great beers are really great, really easy to find. Headway, their flagship IPA is $10 a 4-pack. Very well priced, delicious. Their owner is a stand-up guy as well. There's just good beer everywhere, and there's breweries opening up. They're like, oh, I work at and I'm like, I don't know where that is, but I want to go there and visit. There's just good beer everywhere, and it's a fun time for beer drinkers.
It's wonderful. Someone is curious, can you cork and keep leftover beer?
No. Once you open a beer, you need to drink it. You can, if you have a growler, close it and kind of hope for the best, but it's going to lose, that carbonation's not going to stay. Kind of like how like champagne, you really can't recork any kind of sparkling product. You can, but it's definitely going to be diminished. So when you open a beer, you really should drink it. My mom would disagree. My mom puts a little top on beer and then the next day she says it's fine, but I do not believe her. Um, it's beer is meant to be, when you open a beer, you got to drink it. Or else the carbonation, oxygen in beer are bitter enemies. They really hate each other. When oxygen gets into beer, even that 24-hour period when you have it open and then closed, you're going to start getting some staling flavors. It's going to start tasting like paper. It's going to get sweeter. You're going to lose the hops will diminish. So the minute you open a beer, drink it. Share it. If it's a big beer, share it. Or don't finish it. It's okay not to finish beer. That's totally fine.
Someone is curious if you have, well, I'm excited for this one, a beer that you would recommend to go with ice cream.
Oh, well, ice cream we could do a tasting of ice cream and beer because there's so many different flavors of ice cream, with your lemon sorbets and Belgian blondes all the way to chocolate and imperial stouts. I really like, there's a beer, a lot of beers now are made with coconut, either flaked or whatnot, and that really goes well with chocolate ice cream. I love coconut and chocolate. That's like one of my favorite pairings of all time. So when you can get that in a beer, and then you can have it with ice cream, American stouts or imperial stouts, bigger beers and ice cream. The alcohol and the creaminess will go really well together. Imperial stouts are usually pretty easy to find nowadays. What's also really popular right now is something called the Pastry Stout, where they actually brew.
I'm listening.
With chocolate, they've brewed with donuts, they've brewed with, if you're really into that kind of pastry, they use lactose, so it's very full. 12% Imports, which is a brewery in North Haven. They're a contract brewer, but they brew a lot of these brands that kind of push the envelope when it comes to fruited sours and big IPAs, big stouts, a lot of maple syrup, a lot of, tons of crazy stuff. Their tasting room is beautiful and very well appointed, a great place to go and hang out and then try those kind of bigger beers, right off 91 as well. So that's those pastry stouts where the dessert's already built in go really well with a neutral flavor, like a vanilla ice cream or a chocolate ice cream.
I heard of a brewery, I think they're called Decadent Ales. I think they're in Westchester. I haven't been yet, but they've got some decadent
I'm pretty
flavors.
sure Decadent Ales is brewed at 12%. So okay. That's a contract facility. But yeah, so like Decadent Ales, there's Abomination, there's a bunch of breweries like Evil Twin. There's like 9,000 breweries in America alone right now. So it's hard to keep up, but 12% is a great place to try these kind of like weird and wild hype beers that people are looking for their tasting room is it's a place I would take my mom or like a family member. It gets nice. It's not like a tasting room where you're like drinking behind a kegerator. It's a nice afternoon. So
one person is saying that she has a friend who owns Tilted Barn in Rhode Island. Have you tried it?
Oh yeah, I've got some Tilted Barn in the fridge right now. I have a friend that used to brew there. My friend Kobe, who now brews at Hill Farmstead, was the brewer there, and he would always bring us beers. A phenomenal facility, brand new facility that they just built as well. Their beers are excellent, probably some of the best in Rhode Island. Yeah, their beers are awesome. So yeah, that's cool.
I don't know if this person had come to our beer and cheese pairings, but she's curious, do the same principles apply to cheese pairings?
Yes, most beer and food, like basics, kind of go with everything. So when you have, you're thinking about the 4 C's, the complement, the contrast, the whatnot, matching intensities, that would go with beer and cheese as well. And then experimentation, try, buy some cheeses, buy some beers, and give it a go. see what sticks, see what's good, see what's not good. It's fun to have people over, get a bunch of cheeses, get a bunch of beers, some tasting glasses, and just kind of, and some bread, and like hack at it and try stuff and be like, oh, that's really good. Oh, I don't like that. That's just about, it's just fun.
Sounds like fun. Okay, I think I'm gonna mess up this name. Any recommendations for Kvik beer?
Oh, Kvike.
Thank you, Kvik.
Kvike. So Kvike is quite popular now. I actually haven't had, we make one at Fox Farm. So Kvike's a yeast strain from Scandinavia, so like Norway, the Baltic, so like Latvia, Lithuania. It ferments quite warm and quite quickly, so it like can ferment an IPA in 3 days at 90 degrees. Which is that normally would not be normal with a normal yeast strain, but this yeast is like, and it also creates I get a lot of like juniper and minerality, and like it works really well with hazy beers. So a lot of places are brewing with Kvike. I don't have any recommendations, but I really like how Fox Farm makes one called Verona, which is a sour we use with Kvike because the owner of the brewery has family in Norway. So he got the yeast strain or he looked at getting a yeast strain and making sure that it was, traditional. But it adds this, like, there's a juniper note. It adds this kind of like, almost like, when after the rain, that aroma of like the air after it rains, like on the pavement, it kind of gives that like flavor, but it's really nice. I mean, that is a good thing. But I don't have any, I know they're really popular in IPAs, so it's best just to like go to a good beer store and poke around, make sure everything's fresh, especially if you're buying IPAs, and look for them because that's getting quite popular at the moment at Kvike. So yeah.
Kvike. I'm not going to forget that now. And then someone followed up. Yes, do a follow-up beer and ice cream pairing. So maybe that's something to look forward to this summer.
That would be fun. We could do it outside if
yeah.
We do a little scoop shop.
That would be wonderful.
I love that. I'm down.
Okay, I have a few more questions.
Sure.
Do beers always come in 6-packs, or can you buy these specialty beers singly so you can do a tasting?
Yeah, so places like Total Wine will sell their beers as singles. Just make sure when you're buying, and actually grocery stores, a lot of them do a mix 6. Just make sure when you buy beer as a single, you're looking for the Born On and Best By. A lot of places will kind of shove the bad beer or the old beer into the singles area, especially grocery stores, or like if there's breakage. But this was, $5. I bought it as a single. This was $2. I bought it as a single. So I love singles. I have a really great liquor store near my house in West Hartford called Harvest that has like a huge cooler. You can make the trip down to Halftime Beverage in Mamaroneck. That will have a lot of singles. It's a huge liquor store. A lot of places now do singles or mix 6, and they'll give you a discount. It's a really great way to try beer. Just make sure when you buy singles, look for Born On and Best By, if possible, because there's nothing worse than buying beer, getting it home, opening it, and then being like, this tastes terrible, and there's nothing you can really do about it. So make sure that you're looking at the dates.
Thank you. I'm ingraining that in my head. Let's see here. I see a few of your beers or cans. Is there a difference in taste between the aluminum cans and bottles?
No, there are not actually. So this can has a BPA-free lining in it. So it's essentially, there's no flavor transfer. Even when you drink out of the top, there's a generational thing where, like, back in the day when you're drinking out of a can, yeah, it's going to taste like aluminum, whatnot. But because of the way that the cans are made now with a plastic lining, there's no flavor transfer. So you can drink out of the can and you're not going to taste any of the aluminum. There really is no difference now between bottle and can. Everything's kind of running off this, not running off the same equipment, but running at the same technological speed. So cans are very popular right now. Most beer comes in cans. Cans do protect light from light. Light and beer really hate each other. If you've ever had a Heineken and you taste that kind of skunkiness. That's the light interacting with the beer because it's in a green bottle. Brown bottles cover about 98%, but cans obviously are going to cover 100. So these are the two best implements to hold beer in. But cans are quite popular at the moment, especially the 16-ounce can. These are quite popular. So,
can you recommend a beer that would go with a caramel type of dessert?
Oh yeah, any kind of like winter warmer. So Samuel Smith's a British brewery. They make a beer called Winter Welcome. That would be really great with a caramel dessert. Higher alcohol Belgian beers like quads, like Chimay Blue. Chimay Blue is phenomenal. Easy to find, usually in a single. Or I wish there were more easy to find barley wines in America. There really aren't, which is a shame. Local breweries, a lot of local breweries will make them, and they almost have caramel notes in themselves. So if you go to a local brewery and you see a barley wine, that would go well with caramel.
Okay. Let's see. Now I have a question, just because Super Bowl Sunday's around the corner, and I do follow you on Instagram. Can you share some of your favorite Super Bowl snack pairings?
I love Super Bowl. It's one of my favorites because I eat terribly and we drink a lot of beer. I've got my beer list is I have Budweiser because I actually really like Budweiser, Miller Lite. I like those beers a lot. Easy to drink, always around. We're gonna open an Imperial Stout and make brownie sundaes.
Ooh.
And what else do we have? I've got buffalo wings are really great with light lagers. Lighter lagers tend to be on the sweeter side. I find Budweiser to be quite sweet, and that works well with really salty foods like buffalo wings, pizza. I really like Mexican food and IPAs. So a hazy IPA, if you're gonna have tacos or like bean dip or guacamole is going to be really good with a New England IPA or regular IPA. Oh boy, there's
getting hungry.
I know. I did a beer and Super Bowl foods pairing on social media. So if you look at Facebook or Instagram, you can see it there. So for a vast array of other flavors, beer and football just go together. It's just a great pairing.
Oh, this is wonderful. Okay, have a few more questions.
Okay, great.
Give me one moment.
I'll pour myself a little more beer.
Can you tell us the most obscure place from which you've had sample beer?
Oh, like place as in place I've been drinking beer?
I guess so.
Like, oh boy. I mean, I'm trying to I drank a lambic in the back of a car. Which was awful. I don't recommend that. We were getting a tour of Lambic. We had a driver who was a good friend of a friend, and he was like, "Beers for everyone," and I was like, "Okay." And it was early, and I had a Tilquin to myself. And halfway through, I was like, "I don't want to drink this," and I was in the middle seat in the back, and that was a really weird and terrible place to drink a beer. It's there. I'm trying to think of. I know. When I judge beer, so I'm an international, as I said, I'm an international beer judge. So I've judged in Australia. I've judged the World Beer Awards, which is in several places in America. I've judged the Great American Beer Festival. I'm going to judge and speak at a competition in Mexico in June. It's fun to go drink beer because there's beer everywhere, and there's good beer everywhere. So like going to places like, I mean, I'm going to Tampico, Mexico on the beach, and we're going to drink beers at a resort, and we're going to learn about beer, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So it's cool because the Mexican craft beer scene is really, really good and really strong. And they're making great IPAs. They're making great American craft beers, Belgian styles, German styles. It's cool to see the craft beer tradition kind of grow and be everywhere. South Africa has a really great beer scene. Asia, China, Japan, Korea has a really great beer scene. It's great. I'm excited to travel and go places and have good beers. So
Wonderful. Okay, 2 more questions.
Oh.
Thinking about like the bottles and the cans, why would someone bottle specifically in a green bottle? Is there a reason, or is
Great
it just
question.
pretty?
No, so certain beer styles that don't have a lot of hops in them can be in a green bottle. It's the hop particulate that's it's the isohumolones, actually, is what it is, reacting with a certain degree of light at a certain angle that makes skunkiness. That chemical is called 3-methyl-2-butene 1-thiol, or MBT for short. Or light, yeah. Or light struck if you want to, not be fancy about it. A lot of beers that are sour will be put in a green bottle. At Fox Farm, where I work, we put all our sours in green bottles because of the lack of hops. There's such a low amount of hops in them that there's no reaction. Or spontaneous beers use age hops. So they're only using, so hops are really great for preservative quality. You don't need them for hoppiness. The main reason that they were used back in the day is to make the beer last longer, not for the flavor. So with lambics, like the Lindemans here, this is going to use an age hop, 3-year-old hops. They leave them in like bales. They stink. They smell like Parmesan cheese because of the hop particulate is breaking down and creating isovaleric acid. But when you use them, they don't have that particulate that creates skunkiness. So you can put them in a green bottle. So Heineken's in a green bottle because it's a marketing tactic. If you drink a Heineken in a can versus Heineken in a bottle, the Heineken in a can tastes so much better because it doesn't taste like, it's not skunky because it's not having.
Now I want to do a
light
side-by-side comparison.
Yeah, try it. Same thing with Corona. Corona in the clear bottle. Clear bottle creates no protection, 0. So when you have a Corona in a bottle, the lime is that's what the myth is, the lime is supposed to cover up the skunkiness. I don't actually know if that's true or not, but if you have a Corona in a can or on draft, it tastes so much better. The only beer that's in a clear bottle that's not going to taste skunky is Miller High Life. They use a special hop called Tetra hop, which has the isohumolones taken out, but still has the preservative quality. So Miller High Life in a glass bottle won't skunk because it literally can't.
Okay.
So that's but yeah, green bottles are beautiful. I mean, the sours at Fox Farm look great in a green bottle, and they're not going to get skunky because that's not you put a double IPA in a green bottle, that's going to taste awful. Don't do that.
And our final question, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong too, is Heffenreffer. Beer still brewed. Heffen? I can't do it. Hoffen?
Heffenreffer.
Hoffen. Say it again.
Heffenreffer?
Yes,
that is, I've never heard of that before. There's Heffenweisen.
Maybe that's what it is.
Is it the question? Is it in the Q&A?
Heffenreffer
still brewed. No, it is not, because I've never heard of it before. It must have been so a lot of the older brands were actually, a lot of them were bought by Pabst, like PBR. And so they're brewed, so and a lot of like legacy brands. So I'm trying to think of Schaefer.
Googling it right now.
Yeah, Schaefer or Olympia, or a lot of these heritage brands that were brewed, that were big beers back in the day, are now owned by either Miller, like Hamm's is owned by Miller Coors, but a lot of them are owned by Pabst Blue Ribbon. And so they're still brewed and it's just the same branding, but it's probably not the same beer. So
it was, this was a former brewer in Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts in 1870.
Actually, that brewery is now where Sam Adams has their R&D facility. So they brew out of an old brewery, which I'm assuming, although it may not be. which is, if you've never done it, go up to Boston and take the Orange Line to the Sam Adams facility and take the free tour. It is so much fun. It's a great tour. And go on a beer tour if a brewery offers it. A lot of smaller breweries don't, but a lot of big breweries do, and it's a really fun way to see beer up close, see the science, see the facility, see the amount of technology and machinery that go into making beer. It's cool.
This has been delightful. You are always delightful.
Oh, shucks.
And I just like blown away by all the knowledge that comes out of you. And I would love to do a tasting with you one day, when you're at your brewery and in your zone. But thank you for sharing everything. And if you have enjoyed tonight, let me know what pairings you'd like to do in the future and we can get Em back.
Yeah, I would love to. And if you're interested in following me on social media, it's at Pints and Panels, all Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. There's also, I have an online store. I do commissions. I've got art prints, shirts. I just got into glassware, which has been, if you saw this office, you would scream the amount of boxes of glassware that are towards the ceiling. So it's a lot of fun, and I love talking about beer if you can't tell.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a great night. Enjoy your Valentine's Day or Palentine's Day or Galentine's Day. And I hope you're with your perfect pair. Have a great one.
Cheers.
Bye. Cheers.